Clemson football's defense exposes the transfer portal myth. And I'm going to talk about this in depth on this video. Welcome to Clemson Football Live. This is going to be an interesting discussion, because when Clemson receives criticism, namely Dabo Swinney receives criticism for how the team has just basically started sliding backwards, and they have. What is the number one criticism of Dabo Swinney? So we're going to talk about that in just a second. Hey, welcome to Clemson Football Live. I am Brian. I'm glad you're here. I hope you'll subscribe if you like what I'm doing. I hope you'll pass it along. I talk about other college football teams from time to time because, well, what happens in the world of college football affects Clemson as well. And I just love college football. So pass it along to even non-Clemson fans. I hope you'll subscribe. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know that you're here. I do appreciate it. So as I dive into certain topics, especially in the offseason, I mean, right now, if you're anything like me, you know that we're about 25 weeks away from the opening day. So 25 weeks from today is Saturday, March the 9th. So 25 weeks from today, Clemson and Georgia plays in Atlanta in the opening game. Now, we're 24 weeks away from week 0. So during this span, other than spring practice being in a couple of weeks, the big spring game, not spring practice, the spring game, which is a glorified spring practice in Death Valley with everybody watching, there's a lot of things to think about. There's a lot of topics to break down. But this one, to me, it was just almost like someone punching me in the head, and I go, whoa, hold on, this is actually wow. The number one criticism of Dabo Swinney and the team's lack of dominance versus, say, 2018, 2016, during that 6 years of consecutive playoffs, the number one criticism is Dabo does not use the transfer portal. That's what you hear. Anytime you turn on one of the talking heads on one of these major networks who's paid tons of money to know what they're talking about, they even have people who are pulling stats, who are pulling information, who's supposed to know their stuff and give it to these people, these personalities, which, by the way, I like some of these personalities. I don't like all of them, but I like a lot of these not a lot. I like some of these personalities I have a lot of respect for. But they're only as good as some of the information that can be fed to them because they're trying to cover several teams at one time. So I give them some grace, okay? But when they talk about Dabo Swinney and they talk about the Clemson Tigers, what do they always regurgitate? Dabo's not using the transfer portal. And if he would start using the transfer portal and embrace NIL, all of a sudden, all the problems in Tiger Town would be fixed. Dabo, who makes $11 million per year, hates the very idea of these poor, lowly, innocent players who are being exploited. And every one of them has little brothers and sisters at home with no parents in the house. They're living in a dumpster. All the while, Dabo Swinney goes back to his massive 15,000 or 16,000 square foot home nestled in Clemson, South Carolina. What a Nazi. That's what you hear. Now, folks, if you watch my channel, you know that I've criticized Dabo Swinney, but not for that. I've criticized him for hiring a bunch of first-time coaches on his offensive staff. Hence why the offense, other than Matt Luke being hired recently, and then last year having Garrett Riley hired, other than that, until that happened, you had a bunch of first-timers. The vast majority of the room was the first-timers, so I called him out on that. But transfer portal. That's what everybody goes after Dabo Swinney. Name, image, likeness. The transfer portal is Clemson's problem. There's a problem with that. See, on Clemson's football team, in my opinion, and I know I'm excluding special teams here. Please no one be upset that I excluded special teams here. There's two teams that plays for Clemson football. They're two very different teams. But they wear the same jersey. They play in the same stadium. Heck, they play for the same team, but there's two different teams. It's our offense and our defense. You go, Brian. This hillbilly doesn't know what he's talking about. Obviously, Brian, they're two different units. One's the defense and one's the offense. No. It goes farther than that. Our defense. No, let's go back to this. If the transfer portal was the problem for Clemson football, it would not affect only the offense. Think about it, Burford. If the transfer portal was the problem at Clemson, if name, image, likeness was the problem at Clemson, it would affect more than just the offense. It would affect, drum roll please, the defense. Huh? It would affect the defense. We'd have players leaving left and right. You'd have players who wouldn't want to come play football for Clemson's defense. I mean, how is it that you could quarantine the transfer portal, name, image, likeness, craziness, chaos to just the offensive side of the ball? If it was truly the problem. And don't give me that defensive players are not interested in making money or being praised or honored as much as an offensive player, because have you ever met a defensive back? They're some of the cockiest individuals you've ever met in your entire life. Not all of them. What I'm trying to say is a lot of defensive backs are extremely confident. Most of them arrogant. Confident. And they have to be confident. They don't have to be arrogant, but they have to be confident. Why? Because they'll end up, as Lee Corso used to say on the EA Sports games, on an island all alone. You can't put some weakling at DB. You have to have some guy who eats, sleeps, breathes, believes that he can shut down anybody. That's who you want playing DB for you. So that's out the window. That idea that the only offensive players are really obsessed with the money and that's a lie. I'm not even going to give you the chance. I'm not even going to ask you the question for you to give me the wrong answer on purpose, just being stubborn. Our defense proves that the transfer portal is the problem for Dabo Swinney and the Clemson Tigers. They prove it to be. They expose it to be a myth. You say, okay, maybe I accept this. Why are you doing a video on it? Because it helps us realize what the problem, once again, what the problem really is in Clemson. It also lets you know that there's something from the offensive side of the ball over to the great divide of the defense. There's a mentality on the defense that most all of these players don't want to transfer out. They want to stay here. They're incredible football players. Let me give you a stat. This is incredible. This past season, Clemson finished ranked number 8 At the end of the season, when the dust settled, the championships had been played, the good, the bad, the ugly bowls had been played, the bowls that no one cared about, even the parents of the kids who were playing in these trashy bowl games, they didn't even care about the bowl games. Those bowl games are over all the way to the bowl game, well, granddaddy of them all, and I'm not talking about the Rose Bowl. I'm talking about the national championship. It's over. Clemson finished ranked number 8 in defense. Offense can move the ball between the 20 pretty well for the first 8 games of the year. But they blew it. Defense kept playing. The year before that, the only time that you saw our defense struggle, in 2022, the only time is when the offense hung it out to dry. Turned over the ball. Defense returns the ball, kind of like in the Duke game, which I know that was 2023. But just think about that. They'd been playing this tough, long game, and then the offense turns over the ball, and by the time Cade runs down the defender, it's deep in Clemson territory. That's the only time that we see Clemson's defense not look so good, and it's not their fault. Clemson's defense exposes that on the defensive side of the ball, there's a mentality of excellence. There's coaching from the top down that's incredible. I'm not saying that every coach on Clemson's defense is world-class and the very best, but it's way better than our offensive coaching. Brian, we've got Matt Luke. I want you to stop complaining. Yeah, I agree with that. You just need to understand we're still going to deal with the residual effects of having inexperienced coaches for the past 3 or 4 years on Clemson's offense. Yeah, you fired that guy and finally made a good hire. Good job. I'm glad you did. Glad you woke up. You still are going to live with the results of allowing inexperience to hang around and influence your players, therefore influencing how they play games now and later unless you can rewire them, and if you can't rewire them, you have to replace them. But Clemson's defense exposes the transfer portal myth. So the next time you're listening to your favorite big show on Saturday mornings during football season, or maybe you're listening to your big-time, well-known former coach, college football analysis. Good grief. I'm getting tired, y'all. But you're listening to an analyst, a commentator, and they bring up the transfer portal and it deals with Clemson. If they're on Twitter or X or whatever the crap it's called today, be kind to them, but point out that the defense has had no problem and that the transfer portal is not the problem. Because all they're doing is regurgitating a talking point that all of them are regurgitating, and they're not thinking for themselves. And for us Clemson fans, we need to appreciate our defense. We need to appreciate the coaches who has been leading our defense all the while on the other side of the ball. It looks like Pee Wee's Playhouse. You can almost hear the Benny Hill theme music in the background playing. It's a joke. Our defense and offense looks totally different. I want to say this. Our defense exposes the myth, but we need to appreciate our defensive players and the defensive coaches. Because, let me give you a nightmare. Can you imagine if our defense didn't have the experience in coaching, leading them? We wouldn't have won 5 games last year. Just a little reality check. Appreciation for the defense. The offense has done so poorly over the past 3 years. And the reason that it looks even worse is because right before it, we had one of the most powerful offenses in college football and nobody could stop it. So that's what makes it really look even worse. But our defense, give credit where credit's due. I'm saying that to myself. Take some comments here. Johnny Williams, what's up, Brian? Love your show. Thank you so much, Johnny Williams. We will see what they are working with in the spring game. Look at this, Big John. Big John sitting in here. Happy Saturday, Mr. Unpredictable. I'll catch the first 7 minutes later. Love the message. I know, I wish that I could get my crap together to where I had just a set time. I just don't do it. Thank you, John. John, if you see that symbol beside his name right there, that circle, he is a member of the Clemson Football Live. He supports on a monthly basis. It's either $3 or $5. You're like, what do you mean? You're confused? It's either $3 or $5. No, it's either $3 or $5. You want to support the channel on at a $5 per month or $3 per month. I do appreciate it, John. Thanks for supporting the channel. Still Gamble, guess what? He supports the channel. $3 or $5 per month. Thank you so much, Still Gamble. So sick of the lazy takes about Clemson. Transfer portal isn't why we slipped. The kindergarten level hires on the offense are why we are in the position we are in. You're right. You're right. You're right. You are 100% right. I'm so sick and tired of hearing about the transfer portal. I'm so sick and tired of hearing about NIL too. Clemson players are supposedly being taken care of if they're on the team. That's the thing about NIL. If they're on the team and people want them to represent their brand, they're taken care of. Thanks for being here. Jonathan Benton, I think the transfer portal is overblown as to its impact on Clemson. It's not as simple as going to get a turnkey, ready, big play guy. A lot of transfers are bust. You're right. You do have those players who come out, they do really good things, they blah, 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 blah. But the vast majority of them find out that the grass is not greener on the other side. You're right. It's a lazy argument. Big John, my friend, argued this exact point with a bunch of guys in Greensboro this Thursday. Basically said if the portal was the answer, Colorado would be the national champions. You're right, my friend. I don't have a problem with people using the transfer portal, but I am telling you, it all comes back to coaching. Coaching matters. Coaching matters. Coaching matters. I could turn so blue in the face that I look like a Smurf, and I won't stop saying it. Coaching matters. That's why when that's why when Nick Saban called it quits, the transfer portal lit up with a bunch of Alabama guys. Why? They know that coaching matters. Not saying anything bad towards DeBoer. I'm just saying Saban is Saban, and they're going to hit the transfer portal. Bentley Kellett, keep giving the hard truth, Saints. Bentley, folks, if you like what I'm doing, I hope you'll subscribe. I hope you'll subscribe. You'll pass along to your friends and your neighbors. And quick shout out, I have joined the College Huddle. The College Huddle is a conglomerate of YouTube and podcast personalities who represent certain schools, and there's a lot of them. They reached out to me and said, ask me if I would represent Clemson. I said, abso-flippin'-lutely. So here's a quick commercial. We will launch in April. I know the exact date, but I'm not going to say it yet unless there needs to be some changes. Here's a commercial. The College Huddle, and appreciate Eric Boggs over at the Ohio Podcast for he and his team reaching out to me. It's very nice. Hey, listen, it's an honor to represent Clemson. It really, really is. I grew up right outside of Clemson. I love the area. I love it. Families in the area. I love just going down to the field and walking around. I mean, it'll be in June, and I'm just walking outside of the stadium, peering through the bars at the field. I love the Tigers. And that's why I want to talk about what's wrong, so hopefully we can fix it, right? right? If you really love someone, you tell them the truth, and you're just not harsh about it. You try to get across what's the proper way to fix this. So that's why I love my Tigers so much. I'm glad you're here. Hey, drop your comments, your thoughts below the video. Let me know what you think about this. Are you tired of hearing about the transfer portal and how Clemson is messed up because of name, image, like? I want to hear it. I always ask, be specific. Just please be specific. It's hard for you to convey thought through writing if you're not specific. So I do appreciate it. Once again, if you subscribe, remember it's free. I do appreciate it. As always, it's good to be a Tiger. Go Tigers.